We're taught from a very early age that writing is an intellectual act. We talk about writer's block as if it's just a mental fog, but we rarely talk about the sheer physical labor of it. Writing is heavy. Typing is heavy. If you're a grad student staring down a 60-page dissertation, a teacher staring at a stack of 200 ungraded essays, or a creative professional living with a chronic illness or neurodivergence, the act of producing text isn't just work, it's an extraction. Think about the cursor for a second. That little blinking vertical line in the middle of the white void. It is the most demanding object in the modern world. It's a rhythmic, silent shout saying, "Give me something," over and over again. For many of us, that blinking line is an invoice for energy we simply haven't deposited into our internal bank yet today. When you're managing chronic fatigue or burnout, every keystroke is a withdrawal. You have to find the word, coordinate the fine motor skills in your fingers, check the spelling, and manage the posture of sitting at a desk. By the time you've finished even a single paragraph, you've spent your lunch money for the whole afternoon. But what if we stop viewing the keyboard as the only gatekeeper to productivity? Today we're going to explore a workaround that feels kind of like a cheat code, but in reality, it's a survival strategy. I'm talking about voice to text. I know. You've tried it before. You've shouted at Siri while driving or tried to dictate a text message that came out looking like a word salad. But we're not talking about hands-free texting today. We're talking about a radical shift in how we move ideas from our brains into the world. We're talking about writing while laying on the couch with a heating pad. We're talking about typing while walking the dog because your brain works better when your legs are moving. And we're talking about reclaiming the 40% of your energy that is currently being wasted on the mechanical act of clicking plastic keys. In this episode, we're going to break down the shifty first draft dictation method for academics. We're going to talk about why a 30-second voice memo is a gift of kindness, not just for you, but the person receiving it. And we're going to look at the tools that actually work so you don't spend more energy fixing the transcript than you saved by speaking it. Today, we're putting down the keyboard and letting our voices, or even our silence, do the heavy lifting. Welcome back. I'm Teresa, and this is Spoons in the Classroom. You're listening to episode 3, Voice to Text Survival. Okay, before we get into the meat of our episode, let's take a personal inventory. Go through that 10-minute triage. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Visualize your list of what you have to do today. I know it seems like a lot of stuff for a Monday. Now pick those top 3 things that absolutely have to get done today. For me, I have to teach my class. I have to do content mastery today. And I have to make sure that my kids are fed this evening. Everything else can wait. Find your top 3. Write them down if you have to. Do you have them? Good. Those are the 3 things that you are going to put priority on today. Use the email template that I gave you during the first episode. The text template. If this is a low spoons day, let those around you know. That way they know that you have a very limited bank to pull from today. All right, now that we've done that, let's get into the meat of our episode today. Now that we've done our personal inventory, let's take a look at the cognitive load of typing. But before we talk about how to use voice to text, we have to understand why we need it so badly. We tend to think of typing as this invisible automatic thing. We say, I'm just writing an email, or I'm just finishing a chapter. But if you could see what's happening inside your nervous system when you type, you'd realize it's anything but just. When you type, your brain is performing a high wire act. First, your linguistic centers have to find the word. Then that signal travels to the motor cortex to coordinate 10 different fingers to find specific coordinates on a plastic grid. Simultaneously, your eyes are scanning the screen, and your internal editor is checking for typos, grammar, and tone. It's this complex chain of events, and for most of us, it's being held together by a very, very thin wire. If you're dealing with brain fog, that word-finding link snaps. If you have joint pain or carpal tunnel, the motor cortex link is on fire. And if you have ADHD, that internal editor isn't just checking grammar. It's screaming about a typo in the first sentence while you're trying to think of the third. And when that chain breaks, the whole system grinds to a halt. That's why you've been staring at the same sentence for 20 minutes. It's not that you're lazy. Your hardware is overloaded. There is a specific psychological trap built in to your keyboard, the backspace key. Think about it. When you type, you are constantly engaged in a stop-start cycle. You type a phrase, you don't like it, you hit backspace. You change a comma to a semicolon, you fix a red squiggly line. This is what I call the perfectionism filter. Typing forces you to be the creator and the critic at the exact same time. It's like trying to drive a car while someone is constantly pulling the emergency brake to check the tire pressure. You never get any momentum. Now compare that to speaking. When you talk to a friend over coffee, you don't backspace your spoken sentences. You might stumble, you might say or you might restart a thought. But the forward momentum never stops. You're in a state of flow. Voice to text allows you to bypass that perfectionism filter, and it separates the getting the ideas out phase from the making it pretty phase. By removing the physical ability to backspace every 2 seconds, you give your brain permission to be messy. And in a low energy state, messy is the only way to get it finished. There's actually some fascinating science behind why talking feels easier than typing. And it comes down to executive function. executive function is the CEO of your brain. It's responsible for planning, organizing, and executing tasks. For many of us, especially the neurodivergent or the chronically overtaxed, the CEO is permanently exhausted. You may have noticed I mispronounced a word. I didn't go back and fix it right away. I said executing instead of executing. That's okay. My CEO is a little bit tired this morning. Now, when you stare at a blank white page, your executive function goes into overdrive. It's trying to map out the entire structure before you even start. But research shows that verbalizing thoughts uses a different neural pathway. Speech is one of our most ancient, deeply ingrained skills. We're wired to tell stories. When you use diction, you are shifting the work from the analytical and structured side of the brain to the conversational side. You aren't drafting a formal report anymore, which sounds terrifying to an exhausted brain. Instead, you're just telling a friend what you know. This shift lowers the threat level. Your nervous system will thank you. And your brain stops seeing the task as a mountain to climb and starts seeing it as a story to tell. Now, I call this a survival tool because it preserves your most precious resource, your spoons or your battery. If you spend all your energy on the mechanics of writing, the sitting, the typing, the squinting, the deleting, you have nothing left for the content of writing. When we use voice to text, we are choosing to spend our energy on our ideas, not on our finger joints. We're choosing to stay in bed or sit in a dim room or walk around the garden while still being productive. It's about lowering the barrier to entry. If the barrier to writing an essay is sit at a desk for 4 hours and type, you may never start. But if the barrier is lay under your favorite blanket and talk into your phone for 10 minutes, suddenly it's doable. We're not just saving time, we're saving us. So, now that we know why our brains prefer the sound of our voices over the click of keys, let's talk about the gear. How do we actually do this without losing our minds to bad transcripts? That's next. Okay, so let's talk to the people currently drowning in what I call the heavy text. I'm looking at you, grad students and educators. In the world of academia, text is the only currency that matters. If you aren't producing it, or grading it, or citing it, it feels like you aren't working. But this currency is expensive. It costs hours of physical stillness, intense ocular strain, and the kind of repetitive motion that makes your hands feel 10 years older than the rest of you. You are the kings and queens of the heavy text, but you don't have to be its martyrs. We're going to look at 2 specific workflows today. One for the creators, the students, and one for the curators, the teachers. I have a unique view on this because I'm both of these. I'm a grad school student getting my doctorate degree, and I'm also a teacher. So just know that what I'm saying comes from experience. If you're a grad student, you've probably heard the advice that you should just write. But when you're staring at a dissertation or a thesis, just writing feels like just running a marathon. The biggest mistake you can make with voice to text is trying to dictate your final polished submission. That's way too much pressure. Your brain's gonna freeze because you're trying to speak in APA style or perfect Chicago footnotes. So here's your protocol. Stop trying to write. Start describing instead. Imagine you're at a coffee shop with a friend who's incredibly smart but hasn't read your sources. They ask, "So, what's your third chapter actually about?" You wouldn't quote a primary source. You would explain the logic behind it. So, your workflow. This is the most important part. Don't sit at your desk. That's right. I said don't sit at your desk. Your desk is a place of tension. Sit in a comfortable chair. Heck, lay down on the floor with a blanket if it's a very low spoon day. Open a blank Google Doc or a Word document or whatever you're using. Go to Tools and click Voice Typing. Your goal is just to talk. Tell yourself, okay, so the main point here is that the economic shift in the 1980s changed how people viewed labor, and we see this in the journals of blah, 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 blah. So don't worry about your citations. Not yet. Just say insert citation here and keep moving. By doing this, you save roughly 80% of your wrist energy and physical stamina. You're using your speaking brain to build the skeleton. You can use your typing brain later for the final polish, the citations, and the formatting. You're splitting the marathon into a walk and a stretch. Okay, for my teachers. And I've used this. For my teachers, feedback is your greatest energy drain, especially if you're an English teacher. We have so many essays to grade. Using that feedback, giving that feedback, this is the invisible labor that keeps us up until 11 p.m. or midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning. Most teachers feel like they have to type out long, detailed paragraphs to prove that they've read the student's work. But here's the secret. Students often struggle to read the tone of written feedback. A suggestion can look like criticism. And if they already struggle with their mental health, criticism is not something they take lightly. Some of them take it really, really hard, and even though you're being constructive and you're giving them a suggestion, they're going to take it the wrong way because they can't read the tone of what you're saying. So here's my hack for you. Switch to audio feedback. If you're in the Google ecosystem, you can use an extension like Mote. It allows you to click a button and leave a voice note directly in the comment bubble. If you're using Canvas or Blackboard, many of them have a media comment feature built right in. The efficiency, instead of spending 3 minutes typing, I noticed your transitions in paragraph 3 are a bit abrupt. Try connecting the idea of photosynthesis back to the previous section on cellular respiration. You can say that in about 7 seconds, and your students are going to hear your voice. They hear your encouragement. They hear the, hey, you're almost there. But let's try this. And that's something that text simply can't convey. I've used the voice to text. I've used the audio feedback. Believe me, it's so much better when a kid can hear your tone instead of trying to decipher your tone when they're already stressed about what grade they made. I also use or keep a bank of feedbacks. Generic feedbacks, the ones over comma splices and spelling and punctuation, all that fun stuff. I keep a bank of those on a separate Google Doc. And then if it's way too low of a spoon day for me to even do the audio feedback, I can copy and paste. And it just saves a little bit more time. I'm not having to spend that mental tax to do that. Okay. A quick word on the hardware that we can use. If you're doing this, if you're going to use the voice to text and the audio feedback, the built-in microphone on your laptop is fine, but it's not great. If you have a bit of energy to spare for a setup, a simple plug-and-play USB headset or even a microphone on your wired earbuds will drastically improve your accuracy. For high-level accuracy, Dragon Professional is the gold standard, especially if you use heavy academic jargon or medical terminology or the really high-level thinking vocabulary. For the on-the-go scholar, the Otter AI app is incredible for recording a brain dump while you're outside or moving around your house, and it provides a searchable transcript afterwards. The point isn't to buy the most expensive gear. The point is to find the path of least resistance. If you can speak your feedback or your first draft while resting your body, you aren't just being productive, you're being sustainable. Speaking of impact and connection, let's talk about why this isn't just about work, but about how we talk to the people we love. That's coming up. We've talked about the heavy text of dissertations and grading rubrics, but there's another kind of weight that we carry: the daily friction of communication. We're living in an era of Slack fatigue and email dread. You know that feeling. When you see a notification and your heart just sinks. It's not that the person on the other end is being mean. It's that the thought of opening your laptop and centering your hands on the home row and articulating a professional and polite, perfectly punctuated response feels like climbing Mount Everest. When your energy is low, the keyboard feels like a barrier between you and the people you care about. So we stop replying. We ghost. We let the emails pile up because the physical act of typing feels too expensive. Enter the 30-second voice memo. The first reason voice memos are a survival hack is nuance. Text is a flat medium. It has no face. There's no heartbeat. When you type the words, "We need to talk about the meeting," the person on the other end might read that as a death sentence. Teachers, you know what I'm talking about. You get an email from your principal saying, "I need to talk to you at the end of the day," or "Come by my office at the end of the day." And they send it at 8 o'clock in the morning. You spend all day dreading that meeting when maybe they just wanted to praise you. Maybe they just wanted to ask you a simple question and they knew that the end of the day was the one time that you had free. So when you send an email that says, or a text that says, "Hey, we need to talk about the meeting," the person on the other end, they're going to spend the next 3 hours in a cortisol spike wondering what they did wrong. But when you send a 30-second voice memo, they hear the background noise of your kitchen, they hear the slight lilt in your voice, they hear the warmth. Your tone conveys the message that text never could. "Hey, I have a quick question about the meeting. No big deal, just wanted to check in." By using your voice, you aren't just saving your hands, you're saving the other person from unnecessary anxiety. You are providing a tonal safety net that makes communication safer and softer for everyone involved. Okay, let's look at the math, because the numbers are staggering. The average person types about 40 words per minute. If you're feeling fatigued or dealing with brain fog, that number can drop significantly as you struggle to find the right keys. However, the average person speaks about 150 words per minute. When you choose a voice memo over a typed paragraph, you are literally gaining back time. A thought that takes you 4 minutes to type and edit can be expressed with more detail and better context in a 45-second speech. Think about what you could do with those extra 3 minutes. You could close your eyes. You could take a breath. You could actually finish your tea while it's still hot. Over the course of a day, these saved minutes add up to a significant amount of reclaimed energy. And finally, the personal touch. Whether you're a teacher talking to a student, a manager talking to an employee, a parent talking to a child, the human voice is a bridge. For a student who's been struggling, hearing the teacher say, "I really loved your insight on page 2. It actually made me think about the topic in a new way," is infinitely more powerful than a typed comment in the margin. It feels like a gift. And here's the low energy secret. You can build that bridge without ever sitting upright at a desk. You can send that word of encouragement while you're laying on the couch with your eyes closed. You can be supportive, present, and effective communicator while your body is in full recharge mode. The voice memo allows us to be human when we don't have the strength to be professional typists. It turns communication from a chore into a connection. So how do we start? How do we actually integrate this without feeling like we're being unprofessional? Let's get into the practice. I know what usually happens after a podcast. You think, that is a great idea. I should really overhaul my entire workflow tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and your energy is at zero and the overhaul feels like too much work. So you just go back to the old painful way of doing things. We're not going to do that today. I don't want you to change your life. I want you, I'm going to give you a micro mission. This isn't about productivity. It's about a physical experiment. I want you to prove to your body that there is a less expensive way to exist. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing you have to write today. Just one. Maybe it's that email to a professor you've been putting off for 3 days. Maybe it's a single feedback note on a student's essay. Or just one paragraph of your current grad school assignment. Don't pick the hardest thing on your list. Pick the thing that is currently sitting in the back of your mind like a tiny, annoying weight. Once you've picked your target, I want you to follow these 4 steps exactly. Set a timer for 2 minutes. Not 5, not 10, just 2. This tells your brain that the extraction has a hard endpoint. Open your tool. Whether it's a Google Docs voice typing, your phone's notes app, or a voice memo draft. Don't look at the screen. This is vital. If you look at the screen, your eyes will catch a typo and your internal critic will wake up and you'll start reaching for the keyboard to fix it. Turn the phone over, close your laptop lid halfway. Close your eyes. And just talk. Describe the thought. If you stumble, keep going. If you say, just let it be. Just let the words fall out of your mouth until the timer goes off. When the timer goes off, I want you to stop immediately. Don't edit. Don't even look at the text yet. First, I want you to check in with your body. Notice your shoulders. Are they hiked up towards your ears? Usually when we type, we hunch. But right now, are they relaxed? Notice your jaw. Is it clenched? Notice your wrists and your fingers. Do they have that dull ache of repetitive motion? Probably not. Now, look at the screen. Look at how much text is actually there. In 2 minutes of talking, you likely produced more than you would have in 10 minutes of strained typing. That is the survival part of voice to text. It's the realization that you can produce work without sacrificing your physical comfort. You just bypass the toll booth of the keyboard, and you've got to keep your energy for yourself. Do this once today, and if you never do it again, that's fine. But just for today, let your voice carry the weight. Before I let you go and you head off to try your 2-minute challenge, I need to give you one final, very important piece of equipment. Permission to be messy. Diction is not perfect. It's a conversation between a human and a machine, and sometimes things get lost in translation. Your phone is going to make mistakes. It's going to turn theories of ethics into the series of Elvis. It's going to turn qualitative data into call a native lady. When you see those errors on the screen, your instinct, your highly trained academic perfectionist instinct, is going to be to panic. You'll want to apologize to the software. You'll want to delete the whole thing because it looks broken. I want you to remember the hierarchy of needs we're working with here. The goal of this episode, the goal of this entire show, isn't to help you produce perfect documents on the first try. If you wanted perfection, you'd spend 5 hours hunched over a keyboard trading your physical health for a flawless syntax. Our goal here is different. Our goal is to help you produce anything without emptying your battery. A messy transcript is a victory. Why? Because a messy transcript means the ideas are out of your head and on the page, and you still have enough energy left to go for a walk or make dinner or just exist without a migraine. You can fix the series of Elvis tomorrow when your brain is fresh, but you can't fix a depleted nervous system quite so easily. So be messy. Be loud, or if you need to, be silent and just let the phone listen to your breathing while you find the next word. There is no right way to do this. There is only the way that keeps you going. Reclaim your space. Reclaim your physical comfort. Save your hands and use your voice. I'm Teresa. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to keep listening to these podcasts. And this is how we survive the screen. I'll see you in the next one.